12 million subscribers. That was the height of World of Warcraft, and a place no MMO before or after has come close to. This record was set at the end of WoW's third expansion, Wrath of the Lich King, in 2010, which is also, coincidentally, the fan favourite WoW expansion. It's little wonder then that even as World of Warcraft Classic started in 2019, that the true hype for a lot of people was the inevitable return to Northrend, with predictions currently being that it'll be released between November 2022 and February 2023. I am one of those hyped people. I've got a real-life Frostmourne, a copy of the old Brady Game strategy guide, been achievement hunting in games since the middle of Classic, and my character's name is Tyrannus, purely for my headcanon that I'm going through all of old WoW to get revenge on a wayward son. In short, the Lich King has been my pin-up for a while now. The return of Wrath is guaranteed to excite the WoW player base, but will Blizzard succeed in maintaining this momentum once the expansion is finished? What Blizzard chooses to do post-Wrath will determine whether WoW Classic maintains a steady player count, or we really do see history repeat itself with the second decline. Today I want to speculate on what WoW's future could look like post-Wrath and outline what it would take for WoW to succeed. We begin with the only place we can, with option 1. Start the cycle again. Do what we just did in Classic, but again, make a character in Classic, start to progress from one expansion until the next, till you reach the end of Wrath. Repeat ad infinitum. 6 years from beginning to end with the same old content that people will have cleared a million times by the end of this current run. Naturally, this would make people super bored and thus not return. So we move on to option 1.1. Begin the cycle again with Season of Mastery. Release the original Warcraft, just with a bit of a twist. Harder boss fights, easier leveling, a drastically shorter release schedule, and an opt-in Iron Man challenge. So in this version of events, a character would exist for 3 years, one for each expansion, with the changes each season brings. This has a bit more potential, but ultimately would come down to what changes were being made. The current season hasn't been a blowout success, with only a handful of servers having healthy populations, which many people blame on them not going far enough with their changes. Paladin tanks or Druid boomkins, for instance, still aren't viable, which is unfortunately a missed opportunity to shake up the meta incredibly. So the success of an entire 3-year cycle under this option would come down to what the Season of Mastery actually brings, and unless they're willing to make big changes like giving everyone access to Wrath talents and abilities in Classic, for instance, I don't see them being able to draw people in long term. We then move on to option 2 with rolling fresh servers of each expansion individually. So at the start of any given year, a new set of fresh servers for Classic, TBC and Wrath would be released. Characters begin and end in those years, and maybe a boost to leveling just to get people to max quicker. The logic here is that private servers have been offering rolling specific servers for years now, which were popular enough to force Blizzard into starting Classic in the first place. This, in my opinion, has one of the highest chances of success, as people can play the version of the game they love and get the character build-up feel over and over again. Really easy for Blizzard to set up too, so a nice and simple idea all in all. Option 3 is we just keep pushing forward and move on to Cataclysm. The biggest issue here is that this is when the game changed. The uniqueness of character classes like a hunter having to take care of their pets, a shaman carrying around their totems, or a rogue with their lockpicking sets just disappear. The stats and specializations get more simplified, and a lot of jank goes with these changes, but so does a lot of that old WoW charm. While there are certainly some expansions people would love to go back to and try, like Mists of Pandaria or Legion, I don't think there are enough willing to go through the Cataclysm or Warlords to justify Blizzard investing in creating Classic versions for all of them. This would then inevitably exacerbate the issue of when do you stop and what do you do when you stop. As I can state as an empirical fact without any data on hand, that nobody would play in Battle for Azeroth Classic. So then you'd need to pick another of those options when you finally hit your end stop. Option 4 is a Classic Plus, which is where things get a little more interesting. This goes beyond just having Paladin tanks being viable. This would be whole new content for the Classic experience, like the first cut raid in WoW's history, the Emerald Dream, or something even more original like a Scarlet Crusade-oriented raid. This would be the first content in any of the Classic games that would be an unknown. The race to World Force would be as intense as it is in retail, with each group needing to figure out each boss in a raid where Blizzard would be able to flex their almost 2 decades of raid design experience, but in a Classic setting. There's no doubt that this would incentivize people to get through Classic again to try the new content. The biggest issue for a lot of people in these Classic versions of the game, that even pre-nerf content is incredibly easy with the thorough understanding of the games we have and improved communication between players. This kind of unknown content would be the first real challenge to Classic players, and I believe this is one of the only ways to really bring people back into the Classic style. It would be incredible, and I'd 100% play through Classic again to try them, but I'm not sure there would be enough people to justify to Blizzard's internal decision makers to invest the money and dev time into it. Especially as the logical gear progression would put any new tier of loot on par with the first phases of the Burning Crusade, which makes a jump there after Classic Plus a bit more complicated. So we run into a similar problem as option 3, that it's hard to imagine a cash-focused company like Blizzard looking at the numbers internally and coming to the conclusion that it'd be worth its time over other projects like WoW Classic Mobile. Lastly is option 5, which is probably the saddest of them all. Just shut it down. Maybe even give you the option to pay $15 to transfer a copy of your character over to retail to try and get some people over there to play the live version of the game. This honestly is the least likely of the 5 scenarios, as while I mentioned Season of Mastery hasn't been incredibly popular, a handful of well-populated servers are still tens of thousands of people paying a subscription, which well and truly makes up for the cost of running those servers. Especially as by the time Wrath of the Lich King releases, they'll have invested so much into all the infrastructure and programs required that it'd be a waste not to keep a couple of servers open with a few healthy populations just to maintain a solid cash flow of WoW addicts. This is another reason I think option 2 will be the most successful, as ultimately you'll just have 4 to 5 servers on each expansion, refreshing them from time to time, and people can just keep jumping between them. They get what they want, Blizzard gets their money, and while Classic stops being a major talking point, it does just become another option for people in the MMO space. In conclusion, I think Wrath will be an incredible success, but no matter where they go afterwards, they'll probably not retain as many people in the Classic cycle as they might have liked. The player interest will decline, because it's unlikely that Blizzard will sink enough investment into the dev time required to make anything new, or they'll just keep making lukewarm changes that will not keep people invested into the long term. For so many people, this has been a chance to go back and finally settle old business, to do what they missed out on almost a decade ago, and once they have, I don't think there's anything left for them on Classic. I'm excited for Wrath, but once Arthas is dead and Tyrannus avenged, I'm not sure how much longer I'll be around. Thank you for watching. This video and the next couple of essays are going to be on the smaller side while I work on a much larger project, which is more of a story than an essay, but I think you'll enjoy it nonetheless. If you want to see updates on that or future videos, I'll be starting to post them on my Discord with the link in the description below. Otherwise, like, subscribe, and have an excellent day.